There is a specific kind of fear, a primal override switch in the human brain, reserved for when a loved one is in danger. It's a fear that short-circuits logic, dissolves critical thinking, and floods the system with a singular, desperate command: do whatever it takes to help. For more stories that arm you with the knowledge to fight back against those who prey on the vulnerable, subscribe to the Elder Scam Stories channel. This is a story of how that primal fear was expertly weaponized against my mother-in-law, Eleanor, in a hurt family member scam so sophisticated, so psychologically precise, that it turned her own love and compassion into the tools of her financial ruin. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Vance, is not a fool. It's important to state that from the outset, because the immediate reaction to stories like this is often a condescending shake of the head, a quiet judgment about gullibility. Eleanor is a retired librarian. Her mind is a meticulously organized repository of facts, literature, and history. At 74, she was sharper than most people half her age. She balanced her own checkbook to the penny, navigated the internet with cautious competence, and could spot a phishing email from a mile away. She lived alone in the house my husband, Mark, grew up in, a bastion of quiet independence and neatly tended rose bushes. She was the matriarch of our small, close family, and the sun rose and set on her only grandchild, our son, Leo. The scam began, as they so often do, with the mundane. It was a Thursday morning. I was at work, a middle school teacher trying to explain the concept of irony to a room full of 13-year-olds. My husband, Mark, was traveling for his job, and our son, Leo, a 19-year-old college sophomore, was 2 weeks into a 4-week study abroad program in Spain. He was having the time of his life, and his absence was a constant low hum in the background of our lives, a mixture of pride and parental anxiety. At 10:15 a.m., the old landline phone on Eleanor's kitchen counter rang. She preferred the landline. It felt more substantial, more real than the sleek smartphone we bought her last Christmas. She picked it up on the second ring. Hello? The first voice was a boy's. He was crying, his words thick and distorted. Grandma? Eleanor's heart seized. The voice was wrong, muffled and raspy, as if he had a bad cold, but the word grandma hit his mark with the precision of a guided missile. Leo? Leo? Is that you? What's wrong, sweetheart? Her mind was already racing. Spain? He was so far away. I'm in trouble, Grandma, the voice sobbed. A bad accident. I'm so scared. Before Eleanor could ask another question, a second voice cut in, crisp and authoritative. This voice was calm, deep, and professional. It radiated competence and control. Mom, my name is John Davies. I am a public defender, and I have been appointed to represent your grandson, Leo Vance. The title public defender was a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. It wasn't a thuggish kidnapper or a panicked cop. It was an officer of the court. It lent the entire terrifying scenario an immediate, unassailable veneer of legitimacy. My grandson, Eleanor repeated, her voice trembling. What happened? Is he okay? He's physically unharmed for the most part, Mr. Davies said, his tone grave. But the situation is extremely delicate. Leo was driving a rental car this morning and was involved in an accident. The other driver ran a stop sign, so by all accounts, it was not his fault. However, there is a major complication. He paused, letting the weight of the word hang in the air. The other driver, Mom, was a pregnant woman. She has been taken to the hospital because of her condition. And because your grandson is a foreign national, the local magistrate has taken this very seriously. Every detail was meticulously crafted to amplify fear and confusion. Foreign national, pregnant woman, delicate situation. It was a web of interlocking anxieties. They've arrested him? Eleanor whispered, sinking into a kitchen chair. He is being detained. Yes, Davies confirmed, and here is the most critical part, Mrs. Vance. The magistrate has issued a gag order on the case. Do you know what that means, Eleanor? The librarian did. It means we can't talk about it. Precisely, Davies said, his voice firm. You cannot speak to anyone about this, not your son, not your daughter-in-law, not any other family. If you do, you will be in violation of a court order, and it could severely jeopardize Leo's case, potentially turning this from a minor incident into a serious diplomatic and criminal issue. He could face real jail time. Do you understand the gravity of this? This was the linchpin of the entire scam, the gag order. It was a brilliant, cruel invention that isolated her completely. It took her most powerful weapon, her family, and turned it against her. The very people who could have saved her were now the people she was forbidden from contacting. For fear of hurting her grandson, she was on an island of terror, and John Davies was her only guide. What do I need to do? She asked, her voice small. The judge has agreed to release Leo on a surety bond, which will be fully refundable once the case is resolved and it's proven he was not at fault. But because he is not a citizen, the bond must be paid in cash to show good faith. The amount has been set at $9,800. $9,800, another clever detail. Not around $10,000, which might sound suspicious. The specific, slightly odd number sounded official, calculated to Eleanor, a woman who had spent her life savings on her grandson's education. Without a second thought, the amount was irrelevant. It was simply the price to bring her boy home. Okay, she said, her mind already working. I have it. I can go to the bank. Excellent. Davy said, I will stay on the line with you. It is imperative that you do not hang up. We need to maintain a secure line. When you get to the bank, you cannot tell them what the money is for. Banks have protocols, and they might try to delay you, which we cannot afford. If the teller asks, you tell them you are paying for an emergency home repair, a new roof, or foundation work, something that requires a cash payment to a contractor. Be firm, this is for Leo. He had an answer for everything. He was not just a scammer. He was a director, and Eleanor was his unwitting actor in a play where the stakes felt like life and death. She drove to her local bank, the phone resting in the cup holder. Davy's calm voice a constant presence in her car. He kept her talking, asking about her day, about the weather. Small talk that was grotesquely out of place with the terror thrumming beneath her skin. It was a tactic to keep her mind occupied, to prevent any stray thoughts of doubt from taking root. At the bank, she did as she was told. The teller, a young man she recognized from the neighborhood, raised an eyebrow at the large cash withdrawal. Everything okay, Mrs. Vance? He asked kindly. The light felt like acid in her mouth. Yes, fine, just a foundation issue at the house. You know how it is with these old places. The young man nodded sympathetically and counted out the bills. 98 crisp, $100 bills. Eleanor put them in her purse, her hand shaking. The money felt tainted, heavy with dread. The instructions that followed were even more bizarre. More specific now, Mrs. Vance, Davy said, his tone as serious as a heart surgeon's. You will go home. You will find a small cardboard box, like a showbox. You are to place the money inside it. Then, I need you to cushion it with pages from a magazine or newspaper. This is a standard procedure for secure asset transfers, to prevent the cash from being detected during transit. Once it is packaged, you will wait at home. A court-appointed courier will come to your house to pick up the package. He will not know what is inside. He is simply a bonded transport agent. He will have a code word, Barcelona. That is how you will know it is him. He should be there within the hour. This was the evolution of the scam. This was the terrifying new layer of sophistication. It was no longer just a demand for a wire transfer or gift cards. They were sending someone to her home. A real, physical person. This made the threat feel immediate, tangible, and inescapable. It solidified the fiction in a way a digital transaction never could. Eleanor followed the instructions to the letter. She found a showbox, placed the stacks of cash inside, and tore pages from a gardening magazine to line the box, her hands moving mechanically. She sealed it with tape, and then she sat in her armchair, the phone still pressed to her ear, and waited. Davies kept her on the line, a disembodied voice of authority. Her captor and her savior all in one. 40 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Her heart leaped into her throat. She looked through the peephole. A man stood on her porch. He was unremarkable, middle-aged, wearing a plain blue windbreaker and jeans. He wasn't scary. He looked like anyone. He looked normal. She opened the door a crack, the security chain still on. Yes, the man looked at a clipboard. Package for Davies, he asked, his voice neutral. He looked up at her. Barcelona, the code word. It was him. Relief washed over Eleanor, so potent it almost made her dizzy. This was it. This was the final step to saving Leo. She unhooked the chain, handed the man the showbox, her hands trembling. Thank you, she whispered. He just nodded, turned, and walked down the path to a nondescript sedan parked at the curb. He got in and drove away. Davies' voice came through the phone. The courier has the package, Mrs. Vance. You have done wonderfully. You are a hero for your grandson today. The bond will be posted within 2 hours. Leo should be released shortly after. Remember the gag order. Do not contact anyone. I will call you back with an update this evening. You can hang up now. The line went dead for the first time in nearly 3 hours. There was silence. Eleanor leaned against a closed door, her body trembling with the release of monumental tension. She had done it. She had navigated a terrifying international legal crisis. She had protected her grandson. She felt exhausted, shaky, but profoundly relieved. She was scheduled to have lunch with me that day. I usually came by on Thursdays to check in on her. I arrived about 30 minutes after the courier had left. Letting myself in with my key, I found her in the living room, looking pale and drained. Hey, I said, putting my bag down. You look exhausted. Everything all right? Fine, dear, she said, her voice a little too bright, just a bit of a headache. I knew her too well. I could see the strain around her eyes. You sure? You seem rattled. She hesitated. The gag order was a steel cage around her thoughts. It's nothing I can talk about, Chloe. It's a legal matter, a legal matter. My internal alarm bell started to ring. What kind of legal matter? Does it have to do with the house? No, she said, wringing her hands. It's about Leo. My blood ran cold. Leo? What about Leo? I just saw a picture he posted from a museum in Madrid an hour ago. I pulled out my phone and quickly opened Instagram. There it was. Posted 45 minutes earlier. A smiling selfie of my son, Leo, standing in front of Picasso's Guernica, his face full of life and joy. I turned the phone around and showed it to Eleanor. See? He's fine. He's at the Prado Museum. Eleanor stared at the image. Her face was a canvas of disbelief, confusion, and a dawning, soul-crushing horror. She looked from the smiling face of her grandson on the screen to my worried face, and back again. The carefully constructed world of fear and deception built by John Davies shattered into a million pieces. But the accident, she whispered. The pregnant woman, the bond. What bond? I asked. My voice sharp with dread as the pieces of the nightmare began to click into place. The $9,800, she said, her voice breaking. The courier. He just left. The sound she made next is one I will never forget. It was not a cry of anger or sadness. It was a low, hollow moan of utter violation. The sound of someone realizing their deepest love has been used to betray them. She collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands, her body shaking with silent, racking sobs. The aftermath was a blur of frantic phone calls, police reports, and heartbreaking conversations. We confirmed with Leo, of course, that he was perfectly safe and had no idea what we were talking about. The police were kind but brutally honest. The money was gone. The courier was a mule, likely hired through a gig economy app, who had no idea what was in the box and was probably instructed to drop it at another location, where another link in the chain would pick it up. The scam was likely run from another country, the phone number spoofed, the voices untraceable. John Davies was a ghost. The financial loss was a blow, but it was the emotional wreckage that was truly devastating. Eleanor was consumed by a profound sense of shame. I'm a librarian, she told me, her voice thick with self-loathing. A week later, I'm supposed to be smart. I'm supposed to know things. How could I have been so stupid? You weren't stupid, Eleanor. I told her, my own heart aching for her. You were a grandmother. They didn't scam your brain, they scammed your heart. And that was the truth. In deconstructing the event, we saw the terrifying sophistication of their methods. They had scraped details from Leo's public social media, his location in Spain, our names to build credibility. They had created a scenario far more complex and believable than a simple "I'm in jail" call. They used a fake gag order to exploit Eleanor's respect for authority and to isolate her from her support system. And most chillingly, they used a physical courier to bridge the digital and physical worlds, making the scam feel terrifyingly real and immediate. They didn't just hack her bank account. They hacked her nervous system. They triggered an amygdala hijack, a state of such intense emotional arousal that the logical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, essentially shuts down. Our family has changed since that day. The trust in a ringing phone is gone. We now have a family safe word, a silly, obscure word that, if not used in an emergency call, signals that something is wrong. We've had difficult but necessary conversations about these scams, not just with Eleanor, but with all our relatives. The shame needs to be removed. Victims of these crimes are not fools. They are victims of a ruthless and calculated form of psychological warfare. This crime is evolving. With the rise of AI voice cloning, soon the muffled, crying voice on the phone will be a perfect, indistinguishable replica of your loved ones. The need for vigilance, for communication, and for pre-established safety protocols has never been more critical. We must protect our elders not by judging them, but by arming them and ourselves with knowledge. Please, talk to your parents, your grandparents, your neighbors. Share these stories. You might be saving them from the day their own love is turned into a weapon against them. We hope this story helps others avoid the same fate. We encourage you to subscribe to the Elder Scam Stories channel and to help spread this vital information. Please write in the comments where you watched the story from.